That evening, just as I ran out of my sleeping medication, I went to the kitchen for a drink of water, but I stopped dead still at the doorway of my study. I, George Dixon, a 60-year-old retired professor, stood barefoot in the dark hallway, hiding behind the coat rack, feeling like a thief in my own home. I instantly caught the familiar scent of expensive tobacco from my stepson and saw the shadowy outline of my wife, Cynthia. They were rummaging in my personal safe, but from the looks of it, they weren't searching for cash. When they saw me, they jumped back as if I were a ghost. I had no idea then how close to the truth that feeling actually was. "George," Cynthia whispered, her voice laced with terror. "Why aren't you sleeping? You were supposed to." She cut herself off, but it was too late. That phrase, "you were supposed to," delivered in a whisper, in the total darkness of my own house, hit me harder than the minor heart attack I hadn't yet fully recovered from. It was like the solid ground, the good old earth I'd walked on for 60 years, had suddenly given way, and I was falling. "Hello? My name is George Dixon. I'm 60 years old. I guess I'm starting this too abruptly. It's just difficult to recount, but please, hear me out. I spent my whole career teaching at the State University of Atlanta. I'm retired now, and as I said, I'm on sick leave. I recently had a scare, a mild heart attack. The doctors told me, 'It's nothing, Mr. Dixon. You'll live. But you need to take it easy. Rest, relaxation, and absolutely no stress.' I was taking care of myself. I truly believed my whole family was taking care of me too. I'm telling you this now, and I still can't believe it happened to me in my own apartment with my own family. I hope wherever you are listening from, be it Chicago or Atlanta or wherever, families don't always fall apart over property deeds and square footage, leading to deep cracks like this. But that night, I didn't know the depth of the chasm. I just thought it was some foolish, shameful mistake. It all started with thirst. It was the dead of night, probably close to midnight. I woke up with my mouth completely dry. You know, that sticky, miserable dryness you get after taking medication. I reached for the nightstand. Usually my water glass and my sleeping pills were there. I took a gulp of water, but the bottle of pills was empty. Darn it, I thought. I completely forgot to buy a new script. My doctor had prescribed them after the heart attack. My heart was patched up, but my sleep pattern was a mess. I was waking up 10 times a night, tossing and turning, and felt exhausted by morning. The doctor stressed that sleep was the main medicine and wrote me a prescription for something modern and strong. He said, "You'll sleep like a baby, Mr. Dixon. Just don't miss a dose." And now, the bottle was empty. I sighed in annoyance. Cynthia, my wife, was sleeping next to me, breathing quietly and evenly. I tried not to make noise. I cautiously got up, put on my robe, the favorite one I'd bought her in Miami, and my feet naturally carried me to the kitchen. Maybe I could find some over-the-counter sleep aid there, anything. Our apartment is a typical 3-bedroom condo. The bedroom, then a long hallway, my study on the left, the living room straight ahead, and the kitchen to the right. I padded silently down the dark hall, rounding the corners out of habit. When I reached my study, I froze. A thin sliver of light was shining from under the door. My first thought, I forgot to turn the light off. No, I always check before bed. My second thought, Naomi? No. Our Naomi. She's 20 years old? a college student, and she lives in the dorms. It was too late anyway. Then I heard a whisper, quiet, muffled, but distinct. Two voices. One was my wife Cynthia's, the other was her son, from her first marriage, Darius. What was Darius, a 35-year-old deadbeat, doing in my study in the middle of the night? And Cynthia, she was just sleeping right beside me. A truly awful premonition, cold and sticky, washed over me. I didn't knock. I just quietly pressed down on the handle. The door opened without a creak. They stood with their backs to me, Cynthia in her favorite robe, and Darius in an outdoor jacket, hastily thrown on. They were both bent over my desk. On the desk, you see, I keep a small personal safe. It's not like I keep millions in there, just the deed to the condo and some savings for a rainy day. A professor's stash, you understand. And that safe was open. The door was wide. Scattered beside it were papers from my filing drawer. They were rummaging. They were rummaging through my things like thieves. Cindy, Dax, what are you two doing here in the middle of the night? My voice was raspy, either from thirst or from what I was seeing. They jumped, as if they'd been electrocuted. Cynthia spun around, clutching her hands to her chest. Darius straightened up, slamming a folder of documents shut. Their reaction, it wasn't mere embarrassment. It wasn't shame at being caught doing something awkward. It was pure, animal fear. Panic. Cynthia stared at me, her eyes bulging. Her face went white, like a hospital sheet, and that's when she said the line, "George, why aren't you sleeping? You were supposed to." She cut herself off. Darius, my stepson, recovered faster. He was always quick when it came to his own gain. He tried to smile, but it looked twisted. "Pops, sorry we woke you." We tried to be quiet. Mom was looking for the old car insurance receipt. "I need to go to the office tomorrow, remember? About the premium recalculation." I looked at the mess on my desk, the open safe, and their frightened faces. An insurance receipt. In the middle of the night, in my personal safe, the key to which I always kept hidden. The excuse was so clumsy, so stupid, that I felt physically ill. I didn't say anything to them. Not a word. I didn't yell or demand to know what they wanted. I just looked at Cynthia. For a long time. Then I turned, walked out of the study, and quietly closed the door behind me. I walked back to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. My heart was pounding. Not like during the attack. No, it was different. A dull, heavy thudding as if it were packed with wet cotton. That night was the first time in my life I didn't trust my wife. Up until that moment, my life had seemed, well, if not perfect, then certainly settled and proper. 60 years old, a deserved retirement. Yes, the heart attack had knocked me down, but that was fixable. And most importantly, I had care. I was surrounded by so much care that sometimes I even found it exhausting. Cynthia, my Cindy, with whom I'd shared 25 years, seemed the very height of devotion. She fluttered around me with her blood pressure cuff and herbal teas, making sure I took my pills on time. "George, don't forget. George, it's time." Our daughter, Naomi, a bright young woman, even though she lived in the dorms, called every single day. And even Darius. That was the strange part. Darius, the stepson who usually ignored me, suddenly started dropping by almost every evening. Before, I wouldn't see him for months. But now, he'd suddenly developed this intense, sonly affection. He would sit in the kitchen, drinking teas with Cynthia. Chatting quietly, I lay in the bedroom and thought. I thought about why my appearance had scared them so badly. If they were looking for that stupid receipt, they would have been embarrassed. They would have apologized. But they were terrified. Terrified that I had caught them. And then I realized. I realized when Darius had started these visits immediately after I was discharged from the hospital. And I knew the time. He always came around 10 o'clock in the evening. Exactly the time I should have been sound asleep from my heavy dose of medication. They weren't just waiting for me to fall asleep. They were counting on it. I didn't close my eyes until morning. I just lay there and watched the darkness outside the window give way to a dirty, gray dawn. I listened to Cynthia's breathing next to me, even, calm, asleep. The breath of a woman who sleeps soundly after spending the night rummaging in her husband's safe. My heart didn't hurt. During the attack, it burned and squeezed. But now, it was just numb, as if someone had taken it out and placed it on the pillow next to me. I thought about what Darius had said. An insurance receipt in the middle of the night requiring the safe to be cracked open. They hadn't even bothered to invent something believable. Why? Because they were certain I was asleep. Because I was supposed to be sleeping. That thought wouldn't leave me alone. Supposed to. Around 7, Cynthia woke up, stretched as if nothing had happened, and saw me staring at the ceiling. "George, why are you up?" Her voice had that familiar morning huskiness. "You shouldn't be stressing." "Bad night's sleep," I said. I turned my head toward her. There she was, my Cindy, 58 years old. The same woman I'd raised Naomi with. The same one who held my hand in the hospital 2 weeks ago. But I saw something else. I saw her face, white with fear, in the dim light of the desk lamp in my study. "I'm fine," I said. My voice was wooden. "Just woke up early." It was the first lie. So simple, so mundane, but it settled between us like a sheet of ice. "Well, lie still. Lie still." She got up, put on that same robe from Miami. "I'll brew some coffee right now. Want me to bring it to bed?" "Yes," I said. She went into the kitchen, and I watched her go. A few minutes later, the smell of coffee drifted through the apartment, strong with cinnamon. I always loved how Cynthia made coffee, but today the smell felt alien. She came back with the tray. The cup was steaming, and next to it, on the saucer, lay 2 pills. My morning meds for blood pressure and blood thinning. "Here, George, don't forget your pills. You need routine." Routine. I looked at the yellow and white pills in my palm. Before, I swallowed them without looking, washing them down with coffee. Now, I looked at them, and a cold, sticky terror began to rise within me. What's in them? What if they are already doing something? "George, what is it?" Cynthia looked at me with concern. "You look pale. Want me to take your pressure?" "No." I shook my head, trying to banish the wild thought. "No, I'm fine. Just thinking." I took the pills. I forced myself to do it. Nonsense. This is paranoia. I'm just a sick old man winding himself up. Okay, they were rummaging. Maybe they really needed money. Maybe Darius was in trouble again. And Cynthia, like a mother, decided to take from my stash to help him, and was afraid to tell me. That would be unpleasant. It would be theft, but at least it would be understandable. It wouldn't be as terrifying as what I was starting to think. I drank the coffee. Cynthia sat next to me, chattering about mundane things. A plumber she needed to call, Naomi's upcoming finals. "Oh, by the way," she said, almost casually, "Darius stopped by yesterday. It was late. You were already asleep. He was having issues with that insurance again. I was looking for the receipt for him." She said it so easily, looking right into my eyes. She didn't even blush. She simply repeated the ridiculous lie they had concocted last night. They had colluded. They figured I either wouldn't remember or would swallow the bait. I nodded. Did you find it? Yes, she answered just as lightly. Found it in the old papers in the living room. Why bother waking you over something silly? The living room. Not my study. Not my secure safe. In that moment, I realized they thought I was a doddering old man, sick and weak, who didn't know what was going on. Someone they could lie to straight to my face while I drank my morning coffee. As soon as Cynthia left for the grocery store, I locked myself in the study. I sat down at my desk. Everything was perfectly tidy. The papers were in neat stacks. The safe was closed. The key, as always, was in the desk drawer under my organizer. They had cleaned up meticulously, as if nothing had happened, as if I had dreamed the whole thing. But I knew I hadn't. My hands trembled slightly as I dialed Naomi's number. She answered after the third ring, her voice sleepy but cheerful. Pops? Hey, what's up so early? Everything okay? Naomi? Hi, honey. I stammered. How could I tell her? How could I tell my 20-year-old daughter that her mother? Dad needs to talk to you. Just promise me you'll listen calmly, okay? Dad, you're scaring me. What is it? Your heart? No, my heart's fine, honey. Something strange happened last night. I told her, carefully choosing my words, afraid of sounding crazy. I told her how I woke up thirsty, how the sleeping pill bottle was empty, how I saw the light in the study. I caught your mother and Darius in my study last night, Naomi. They were rummaging in my safe. Silence hung on the line. Pops, she finally said, and in her voice I heard the thing I feared the most. Condescension. Loving, caring condescension. Dad? Come on, Naomi. I'm not making this up. They were... Pops, you're overthinking things. She interrupted me, but gently. You're recovering from an attack. You can't be stressing. So, they were looking for something? Maybe it really was the receipt. In the safe? Maybe Mom thought you put it there. Dad, don't be ridiculous. Stealing? Her voice was so young, so certain. There was no doubt in it. There was love for both of us. She simply couldn't believe, physically couldn't believe what I was saying. They were scared, Naomi. They were terrified I caught them. Pops? Of course they were scared. She even chuckled. They bust into your study like elephants and wake you up. They're scared you're going to chew them out. Mom wouldn't do that. Dad, please, don't worry about it. Take a chill pill. You need rest. Okay, Pops, gotta run to class. I'll call you tonight. Love you. Love you? I answered mechanically. I hung up. She didn't believe me. To her, I was a sick old man overthinking things. And Cynthia was simply her mother. She saw nothing but care. I was left alone. Absolutely alone. Naomi loves us both. She can't believe it. She doesn't want to choose sides. If I wanted to know the truth, if I wanted to survive, I had to act myself. All my professorial logic, my entire life where 2 + 2 always equaled 4, suddenly started working at a frantic pace. What did they want? Money? Documents? The deed to this 3-bedroom condo in the downtown area. Darius had been eyeing it for a long time. But I was still alive. But what if you were supposed to be sleeping wasn't just a phrase? What if the sleeping pill bottle was empty yesterday for a reason? A chill ran through me so profound that my teeth started to chatter. I had to check this. I got up and found my wallet. Cindy, I'm going for a walk, I called out toward the hallway when I heard her return. The doctor said it's good for me. She immediately rushed out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. George, alone? Let me go with you, or I'll ask Darius. He should be around soon. No, I'll go myself. I was scared by how sharply I had said it. No, I'll go myself. Just a short walk around the block. I need some air. She looked at me. I couldn't tell anymore. Was it concern or suspicion that I had caught on to something? All right, she finally drawled. Just put on your scarf, George. It's chilly. She came over and wrapped the scarf around my neck herself. The same hand that had opened my safe last night. I stepped outside. It was a damp, raw fall day. The cold wind bit at my face. I walked to the pharmacy on the corner. I need these sleeping pills, please. I handed the pharmacist the empty bottle I had brought from home. Yes, of course, Mr. Dixon. 1 pack, as usual. I bought a new full package, exactly the same. As I walked back home, clutching the cardboard box in my pocket, a plan was taking shape in my mind. A terrifying, wild, but the only right plan. I had to pretend. In the evening, Cynthia came into the bedroom, right on schedule. I was already in bed. George, did you take your pill? You didn't forget? She stood in the doorway, so familiar, in her robe. Yes, dear. Thank you. Already taken it, I lied, looking her straight in the eye. She smiled. That's good. Sleep well, honey. I hadn't taken it. The pill from the new pack was hidden under my tongue. As soon as Cynthia left, I spat it out and flushed it down the sink. I lay down, closed my eyes, and waited. I didn't know exactly what I was waiting for, but I knew they would come. I waited, feigning sleep, and I was afraid. God, how afraid I was of what I was about to see. Lying in bed, pretending to be asleep when your heart is pounding so loudly you think they can hear it in the kitchen. I tell you, that's a worse torture than any physical pain. I lay there without breathing. Or rather, I breathed slowly and evenly, as a sleeping person should. I forced my 60-year-old, heart attack-scarred body to obey. Inhale, exhale, even calm. While inside, everything was screaming. Cynthia wished me good night and left. I heard her go to the kitchen. A cup clinked, the water faucet ran, and then the TV turned on in the living room. Low volume. Some evening drama. It was all so ordinary, so normal. Wife watching TV, husband with a heart condition going to sleep. And that very normalcy made it even more terrifying. Am I going crazy? Am I an old professor, inventing a whole detective story? Maybe I shouldn't have skipped the pill. I lay there for an hour, or maybe 10 minutes. Time had turned into a thick molasses. I listened to every rustle. A floorboard creaked in the hall. That was Cynthia going to the bathroom. The water ran again. She was getting ready for bed. And then I heard a quiet click from the front door lock. Barely audible. If I had been asleep, I would never have woken up. But I wasn't. Darius. He did come. So I was right. Their night visits weren't a coincidence. I heard muffled whispers in the foyer. Cynthia's voice? Darius's voice. They didn't go to the living room. They stayed in the kitchen. I lay like a stone. Moonlight shone dimly through the window, onto the nightstand. I could see the silhouette of the water glass, and next to it, the new bottle of sleeping pills. The one I'd bought this afternoon. My bait. Dear God, what was I thinking? What kind of plan? I'm just lying here like a lamb waiting for slaughter, and waiting to see what happens next. What if they came in right now? And my mouth was dry again. The bedroom door creaked open softly. They entered. I could feel the air in the room shift, and the scent of Darius, always a mix of expensive cologne and tobacco, filled the bedroom. They stood near the doorway, listening. "He's asleep." That was Cynthia's whisper, so soft I barely made it out. "Out cold," Darius answered just as quietly. "Go on. What are you waiting for?" I heard soft steps on the carpet. They approached the bed, my side of the bed. I was lying with my face to the wall, but turned slightly. I risked it and opened one eye, just a sliver, through my lashes. In the faint moonlight, I saw their silhouettes. Two dark shapes leaning over me. No, not over me, over the nightstand. I watched as Cynthia, my Cindy, reached out and took my brand new, full bottle of sleeping pills, the one I had purchased at the pharmacy today. Her hand paused for a second. Then Darius reached into the pocket of his jacket and pulled something out. He passed it to Cynthia. I could not have been mistaken. Even in that darkness, I could see it was an identical bottle. The shape, the size, the cap, and right before my eyes, Cynthia made the switch. She put their bottle on the nightstand and clenched my real bottle in her fist. I closed my eye. My heart skipped a beat, then launched into a rapid, frantic rhythm. They stood there for another second. "Done," Cynthia whispered. "Let's go." They left as quietly as they came. The door closed. The lock clicked in the hallway. Darius left. I don't know how long I lay there. 5, maybe 10 minutes. I was afraid to move. I was afraid they would come back, that they had suspected something. Then I heard the bed creak in the hallway. Cynthia was lying down in Naomi's room. She often slept there. She said she was afraid of waking me up because she tosses and turns. "You need rest, George," she would say. "Rest." I slowly, very slowly, sat up in bed. I was trembling. No, I was shaking with violent, feverish tremors. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I looked at the nightstand. There it was, the bottle, sitting there as if nothing had happened, waiting for its moment, waiting for me to wake up thirsty and decide I needed to sleep. I reached out a shaking hand and took it. It was full. I shook it. The pills rattled inside with a dull sound. What was in it? What was in this bottle that my wife and stepson had substituted while I was asleep? I thought they wanted my money. I thought they wanted to trick me out of the condo. How foolish, how naive I had been. This wasn't fraud. This was slow, quiet, domestic murder. They didn't want to dirty their hands. They wanted me to simply not wake up. An overdose. A poison that would trigger another heart attack. My sick heart was the perfect cover. Ah, poor George Dixon. He never recovered. We took such good care of him. Care. What a terrifying word. I looked at the bottle in my hand, and rage began to replace the fear. A cold, black fury. A fury that my professor intellectual self had never suspected he possessed. They decided I was obsolete, an old man getting in the way, preventing them from selling the condo and living comfortably. I got up. On wobbly legs, I walked to the bathroom and locked the deadbolt. I sat on the edge of the tub and turned on the water so Cynthia wouldn't hear anything. The water ran noisily, and I stared at my reflection in the mirror. Staring back was a pale, frightened old man with a crazed look in his eyes. No, the police. What would I tell them? "Hello?" My wife switched my pills while I was pretending to be asleep. They would look at me like I was insane. They would check the bottle, and Cynthia would say I bought it myself, that I was sick, that I had post-heart attack paranoia. Naomi, my daughter, she hadn't believed me this morning. But now I had evidence, right here in my hand. I pulled out my cell phone. My hands were still shaking. I could barely hit the buttons. Naomi, I whispered into the phone, yelling over the sound of the running water. Naomi, it's Dad. Pops, what is it? What time is it? Why are you whispering? Her voice was alarmed. Naomi, I swallowed hard. Please, come home right now. Immediately. Dad, what happened? Are you sick? Do you need an ambulance? No ambulance. Just come. Take an Uber. I'll pay for it. And most importantly, Naomi, do you hear me? Not a word to your mother. Not a sound. Just come. I paused. This is a matter of life, honey. Silence hung on the line. The condescending silence from the morning was gone. I'm on my way, Pops, she said firmly, and hung up. I sat in the dark bathroom, clutching the phone and that terrifying little bottle to my chest, waiting for my daughter. And I knew that tonight, the war in my home had just begun. I sat in the icy bathroom for what felt like an eternity. Time had stopped. I listened to the apartment's humming silence. I heard Cynthia tossing and turning in the room next door. My wife, the woman who had just sentenced me to death. Every floorboard creak in the hallway hit me like a blow to the chest. I thought, she's going to wake up now. She'll realize I'm not in bed. She'll start looking. What then? What would I say to her holding this bottle? I stared at the vial in my shaking palm. So ordinary, pharmaceutical, white plastic, blue label. It contained my medicine, my rest, the very eternal rest she had wished upon me. And then, far away in the foyer, I heard a faint, delicate scratch. A key in the lock. It was Naomi. She had her own key. I rose on shaky legs. My heart was pounding somewhere in my throat. I cracked open the bathroom door. The hallway was dark, but I saw her silhouette. She stood there, still wearing her coat, pale as a ghost in the dim light of the street lamp outside the living room window. Pops? Her whisper was barely audible. I stepped toward her. Without a word, I took her cold hand and pulled her along. Not to the kitchen, not to the living room, but to my study. Only there did I feel some semblance of safety among my books. I closed the door and turned the key in the lock. Dad, what happened? You scared me to death. What's wrong with you? Where's Mom? Quiet, I choked out. Quiet, honey. I turned on the desk lamp, the same one that had been on last night. The green shade cast a soft, peaceful light over the desk. Dad, you're shaking all over. Are you having an attack? No, I said. I'm having a revelation. I sat in my old desk chair and placed the bottle I had brought from the bedroom, the one Cynthia and Darius had left me, on the table. Naomi looked at it. Dad, that's your sleeping medicine. I don't understand. Did you lose them? Wait. You know, that day I went to the pharmacy, something clicked inside me. A kind of self-preservation instinct, I suppose. I was at the register, and a voice inside told me, buy 2. I didn't know why. I just obeyed. I bought 2 identical packages. I put one on the nightstand as bait. I reached for my desk drawer. Under a pile of old lecture notes I had never gotten around to throwing away lay the second bottle, my real one. I placed it on the desk next to the first. Look, Naomi, look here. My voice was trembling, but I tried to sound firm. This one. I jabbed a finger at the first vial. This was on my nightstand. Mom left it there. And this one. I slid the second one over. I bought today and hid. She stared at the two perfectly identical vials. Pops, I still don't understand. You bought 2 bottles. No, Naomi. I looked her straight in the eye. I prayed she would see. She would believe. The one I bought and put on the nightstand, they took it. Cynthia and Darius. Tonight, while I was pretending to sleep, they took my actual bottle. And this one. I pointed again at the first vial. This one, they substituted for it. Naomi was silent. She looked at the 2 vials, her morning condescension, her adult certainty that her father was overthinking things, melted from her face like wax. Dad, she whispered, what are you talking about? I'm saying, Naomi, that in this bottle is poison, or a lethal dose, something that would make my bad heart just stop. Quietly, in my sleep, just as it was supposed to. That phrase from Cynthia echoed in my ears again. Naomi slowly reached out a hand. She didn't touch the vials. She just held her palm above them. Then she looked up at me. There was no more doubt in her eyes. There was horror. Mom, she breathed. And Darius. They want to kill me, honey. Because of the condo. Because of the money. I don't know why. I only know that I'm in their way. I thought she would cry, scream, become hysterical. My 20-year-old girl. But I was wrong. I saw the horror in her eyes replaced by something else. Something cold and hard as steel. I had never seen that look on her before. They want to kill you. She wasn't asking. She was stating a fact. She picked up the substituted vial, opened the cap, and sniffed it. Doesn't smell like anything, she said dully. Careful, Naomi. We have to go to the police, I said, though I knew the absurdity of it right now. No, Naomi snapped. She looked at me with her new steel gaze. No, Dad. And what would we tell them? You show them this? She nodded at the bottle. They'll call Mom. And you know what she'll say? She'll say you're sick, that you have post-heart attack paranoia, that you bought these pills yourself from 2 different pharmacies and are now delusional. She'll cry, and they'll believe her. And you, Dad, at best, they'll send you for an evaluation. She was right. Terribly right. Cynthia would play the tragedy so well that I would end up looking like the guilty one. But what do we do, Naomi? I felt so old, so helpless. Naomi closed the substituted bottle and squeezed it tightly in her hand. We cannot let them know that we know. Under no circumstances, she said. Her voice was even, almost emotionless. She thought for a moment. This bottle, she picked it up. I'm taking it. It's the main piece of evidence. We'll get it analyzed, secretly. And what about the nightstand? I asked. She'll see it's empty. No. Naomi shook her head. There has to be a bottle on the nightstand, exactly the same. Dad, do you have any vitamins? Anything harmless in a similar vial? I thought and remembered. And yes, I think so. In the dresser. I went to the bedroom. Cynthia was sleeping. I crept on tiptoes to the dresser, opened the drawer. Yes, here they were, simple multivitamin tablets I took in the spring. The bottle wasn't exactly the same, but the label was similar in color. It will work, I whispered, returning to the study. Naomi took the vitamin bottle. The labels are different. She'll notice. She paused for a second. Then she decisively took my real bottle, the second one I'd bought. Dad, she said, here is your actual sleeping medication. Hide it far away, where they'll never find it. Understood. I nodded. The poisoned bottle I'm taking with me right now. And for the nightstand? She looked at the vitamin bottle. We'll put this one. But the label, Naomi. Forget the label. she said sharply. She'll come in the morning, see the vial. In the dim light, she won't notice, and even if she does, it will be too late. The important thing is you'll be safe. You'll take a vitamin. She hid the poison vial deep in her bag. Dad, she said, looking me in the eye. Now listen to me. We can't just sit here and wait. We have to make them talk. We have to set a trap. Naomi, what are you talking about? What trap? I know what they want more than anything. Darius has been buzzing in my ear forever about this condo, saying it's inefficiently used and that an old man doesn't need this much space. They think you are almost... She didn't finish the sentence. So be it, she said. Dad, you'll have to play a role. You'll have to play the part of a dying man. I looked at my 20-year-old daughter, who had just saved my life and was now coldly developing a plan that turned my blood cold, and I realized my quiet professorial world had finally collapsed. Dying? I repeated, as if I hadn't heard her. Naomi, what are you saying? Are you serious? This is... I couldn't find the words. It was monstrous. I'm Professor George Dixon. I taught logic and the history of philosophy my whole life. I'm not an actor to play such a role. Dad, she took my hand. Her palm was ice cold, but her grip was firm, like a man's. We don't have a choice. If you tell them, they'll just laugh. They'll say you're delusional. And, Mom, her voice cracked on the word. Mom will back them up. We have to make them believe their plan is working, that you are fading, that the pills are doing their job. I looked at my girl, 20 years old, a student. She should be running off to dates, complaining about boring lectures, and instead she was standing in my study at 3 o'clock in the morning, planning how to set a trap for her own mother. They have to get careless, Dad. They have to rush. They want to sell the condo while you're still here, while they can forge your signature, while they can deal with shady notaries. I'm sure Darius knows people for that. She was right. The poison was just the first step. Next came the condo. All right, I said. My voice was shaky. All right, I'll do as you say. She picked up the vitamin bottle from the desk. This is your sleeping pill now. Put it on the nightstand, in the most obvious spot. Tomorrow morning, in front of her, you'll have to take it. She zipped the poisoned vial into her bag. The sound seemed like the click of a safety being released. I'm leaving, she said. I'm going to a friend's place. I won't go back to the dorms. Not a word to anyone. Tomorrow I'll call them and start my part of the plan. She hugged me tight, desperately. Hang in there, Pops. You're not alone. She left as quietly as she came. I stayed in the study, taking the vitamin bottle. Changing the label was pointless. Naomi was right. Cynthia wouldn't look closely. She was confident in what was on the nightstand. She put it there herself. I went back to the bedroom. Cynthia was sleeping peacefully. I put the vitamins on the nightstand and lay down. The morning was impossible. I woke up to the smell of coffee. Everything was the same as always. But the world had flipped upside down. Cynthia came in with the tray, smiling. Good morning, George. How did you sleep? How did I sleep? I looked at her with a dazed expression. I tried to breathe heavily. Not great, I croaked. My head is spinning. She immediately put the tray on my lap. Her eyes, I truly looked into them for the first time. There was no fear. There was expectation. Well, it's probably your blood pressure, she said. Are you taking your pills? Oh, by the way, she gestured toward the nightstand. You were struggling last night. Did you take your sleep aid? She was looking at that bottle. No, I said. I forgot. Well, there you go, George. You have to. The doctor prescribed it for sleep. Sleep is your main medicine right now. She said this looking into my eyes. Yes, I said meekly. You're right. And in front of her, I took the vitamin bottle. My hands were shaking. Not fainting this time. I opened the cap and poured a yellow pill into my palm. "That's a good boy," Cynthia said patronizingly. "Take it. Wash it down with coffee." I put the vitamin in my mouth and drank the coffee. She watched me swallow. In that moment, I understood. She wasn't just waiting. She was savoring it. Savoring her power. Savoring how I obediently took the medicine from her own hand. "I think I'll just lie down for a bit longer," I said, setting the cup aside. "I feel weak." Of course. Of course. Lie down," she bustled. "I'll check on you later." She left, and I lay there, staring at the ceiling. I played the role all day. I didn't leave the bedroom. I asked for broth to be brought to me. I spoke softly, confusing my words. I forgot why I had called her. It was repulsive. I felt humiliated. Cynthia fluttered around. She was cheerful. I hadn't heard her humming to herself like that in years. She was too attentive. She peeked in every half hour. "How are you, George? Still lying down? Good, good. Lie down and rest." She was waiting for the pills to start working for real. Closer to evening, the phone rang. Cynthia was in the kitchen, but I heard her snatch up the receiver. It was Naomi. I tensed up. It had begun. I couldn't hear what Naomi was saying. I only heard Cynthia's voice. "Naomi, what happened?" There was such genuine alarm in her tone that I honestly would have believed her. "Calm down. What about your dad?" A pause. She listened. "He didn't recognize you, Naomi? What are you saying?" She listened further, and her tone shifted. The alarm faded. "Yes, I understand. It's difficult for you. I told you, honey. His condition is serious." And then I heard it. "Buyers." Cynthia's voice became quiet, businesslike. "What kind of buyers, Naomi? Serious businessmen?" She listened for a long, long time. "Right today?" "Well, Naomi, I don't know if that's convenient. He's so—" She paused. I knew what she was thinking. Convenient? It was more than convenient. "No, no, you're right," she quickly said. "You're absolutely right. We can't miss this opportunity. If the people are serious, yes, bring them over." "What time?" 7. "Okay, Darius and I will be here." "Yes, I'll call him now." "Naomi, just hang in there. You're doing the right thing. We'll support you." She hung up. Silence reigned in the kitchen. Then I heard her dialing a number. "Darius?" Her voice was ringing with barely contained excitement. "Darius, get over here, fast. It looks like Naomi finally came around. She has buyers?" "Yes. Stay." A 7. Silence. I lay in my bed, in my bedroom, in the condo that was about to be sold in 2 hours, and I had to play the part of a dying man. You know, at that moment, I wasn't scared anymore. I was disgusted. I had lost my wife, lost the belief in the family I thought I knew. I had lost 30 years of my life, which, it turned out, was all built on a calculated sham, behind which hid 2 predators, waiting for my death. I didn't know who Naomi was bringing. She said she'd arranged everything. I just had to trust her and play my role to the end. Promptly at 7, the doorbell rang in the foyer. I closed my eyes and prepared for my final entrance. I lay with my eyes closed, listening to every sound. The doorbell sounded like a starter pistol shot. Then I heard Cynthia, bustling, run to open it. The door creaked. "Naomi, please come in. Oh, you're so fast." Cynthia's voice was honeyed, hospitable. "Good evening," a deep, unfamiliar male voice said, calm and businesslike. "We're here about the apartment listing from Elena." "Yes, yes, of course. Come in. Please take off your shoes." "Darius?" she called out. "Darius, come meet the guests." Darius, who was probably already lurking in the foyer, immediately responded. "Good evening. Pleased to meet you." "Sergeant Peterson," the deep voice replied. "Igor Matthews," came a second, slightly higher but equally confident male voice. I heard them enter. Heavy footsteps, scents, expensive tobacco like Darius's, and something else. The smell of leather briefcases. "Mom, Dad is doing really badly," Naomi said. Her voice was broken. God, how well she was acting. It was full of tears and exhaustion. "He didn't recognize me. I'm scared." "Shush, shush." "Honey," Cynthia immediately chimed in. "Well, what can we do? We're doing everything we can. Come in, Sergeant Peterson. Igor Matthews, this is the living room. Take a look." I lay in the bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, just enough for me to hear. They began the inspection. It was a cynical, terrifying performance. Darius acted like the owner. He already was. "Look here," he cheerfully announced. "The living room is 237 square feet. Hardwood floors, real oak, as you can see. Windows face the courtyard. It's quiet. 10-foot ceilings. A pre-war structure. Quality. You understand?" "Yes, we see," the second voice, Igor Matthews, agreed. "Good layout. Lots of load-bearing walls only around the perimeter. You could knock everything down and make it a studio. It would be a gorgeous loft." "And the neighborhood is great," Darius added. "The neighborhood is good," Igor Matthews agreed. "But what about the documents? Is the condo privatized?" "Absolutely," Darius answered, without batting an eye. "Single owner. Everything is clean. The old man, well, he's been around, but there won't be any issues with the paperwork. We'll prepare everything perfectly." I listened to the bartering. They were selling my condo, with me alive in it. They walked through the kitchen. Cynthia was chattering about the German cabinetry she would graciously leave behind. "Where is the bathroom?" Sergeant Peterson asked. "This way, down the hall," Darius led them. "Come, I'll show you." Their footsteps approached. They walked past my door. I heard them discussing replacing the pipes. "Okay," Igor Matthews said. "Everything seems clear. Kitchen, living room, bathroom. And what room is this?" I knew it. They were standing at my door. Cynthia lowered her voice to a tragic whisper. "This is the bedroom. My husband, George Dixon, is in here. He's very ill." "Can we take a look?" the deep voice asked, matter-of-factly. "We need to understand the total square footage." Yes, of course," Darius bustled. "Just quietly. He's sleeping. I mean, he's heavily medicated." The bedroom door opened. I lay there, turned toward the wall, but not completely. I left myself a slit to see through. I was breathing evenly, heavily, with a wheeze. The bright light from the hallway poured into the room. And there they were, Cynthia, Darius, and the two strangers. Tall, in expensive coats they hadn't bothered to remove. Respected, solid-looking men. I couldn't make out their faces in the dim light, but their posture was confident. They looked at me, the way you look at an obstacle, at an old wardrobe that's getting in the way of measurements. "There," Darius whispered, waving a hand in my direction. Well, you see?" "We see," Sergeant Peterson nodded. "The condo is good. The location is excellent. But there is one problem." He said this looking directly at me, at my body on the bed. "What problem?" Darius tensed up. "The owner," the buyer said, in an even voice, without changing his tone. "He's still alive. Silence hung in the air. Cynthia sucked in a sharp breath. Naomi, standing behind them in the shadow of the hallway, froze. I lay there, my heart hammering against my ribs. In that moment, as this man looked at me like a piece of furniture, I thought only one thing. Should I have simply trusted Naomi and her plan, however risky it was? Or should I have still tried to go to the police, risking being taken for a madman? But it was too late. The performance was on. Darius, deciding that he was among his own kind, cynical businessmen who just needed an explanation, stepped forward. He leaned proprietarily against the doorframe. He smirked smugly. "Don't worry, he said quietly, confidentially, nodding toward me, "So that's not a problem. It's really not a problem at all." "Meaning?" Igor Matthews inquired impassively. "Meaning?" Darius lowered his voice. "He's on very heavy medications. The doctor said it's a matter of..." He made a significant pause. 1 or 2 days. He might not even make it through this night. Darius smirked even wider. I listened to this. My stepson. Standing 2 feet away from me, he was announcing the date of my death. He was trading on it. Cynthia was silent. She didn't say, "Darius, what are you saying?" She didn't say, "Don't you dare." She stood right there and said nothing. She agreed. Naomi, standing in the shadows, quietly gasped. But they paid no attention to her. They were looking at the buyers, awaiting their reaction. 1 or 2 days, Sergeant Peterson repeated, as if trying the phrase on for size. That certainly changes things, but... He didn't finish. I slowly, making the bed springs squeak, started to sit up. "I think," I said in the stunning silence, "I've changed my mind about dying." My voice, clear and firm, without the raspiness I had been so diligently feigning, sliced through the bedroom's silence like a scalpel. If a bomb had exploded in the room, the effect would have been weaker. Cynthia, she didn't scream. She made a strange gurgling sound, as if she'd been hit in the stomach. She grabbed her throat. Her eyes widened to an unbelievable size, and all the blood drained from her face. She looked at me as if I had walked straight out of the grave. Darius froze. His smug smirk was fixed on his face, turning into a waxen grimace. He dropped the folder of papers he was holding. The sheet scattered across the floor. He looked at me, then at Cynthia, then back at me. His quick, cynical mind simply refusing to process what was happening. He opened and closed his mouth like a fish thrown onto the ice. "George," Cynthia finally managed to gasp. It wasn't even a whisper. It was the rustle of dry leaves. I turned on the bedside lamp. The bright light hit their faces, illuminating the pure animal terror on them. "I think I've changed my mind about dying, Cynthia," I repeated calmly, pushing back the blanket and placing my feet on the floor. I sat on the edge of the bed, alive, well, and very, very, very angry. The plan had to be slightly adjusted without my involvement. "Pops, you," Darius began, a note of hysteria creeping into his voice. "What kind of circus is this?" "Circus," Sergeant Peterson, the one with the deep voice, cut in. He stepped forward, coming out of the shadow. He was no longer a buyer. He was something else. "The circus, young man, is what you two set up here. What is happening now is called something a little different. He calmly unbuttoned his coat, reached into the inner pocket of his jacket, and pulled out a digital recorder. Small, professional grade. He pressed a button. Don't worry. That's not a problem. He's on very heavy medication. The doctor said it's a matter of 1 or 2 days. He might not even make it through this night. Darius's voice, so smug, so repulsive, filled the room. Cynthia crumpled. She started to slide to the floor, grasping at the door frame. What is that? Darius shrieked. His face was contorted. What is that? Who are you people? I am, Sergeant Peterson, the man introduced himself. I am Marcus T. Holloway, Esquire, an attorney at law. And this, he nodded to his colleague, is my colleague, David Sterling. We are not buyers, Mr. Holloway continued. We are, shall we say, a group of evidence gatherers. You provoked us, Darius yelled, trying to regain his footing. This is a setup. It's illegal. I'll report you. Report us? Mr. Sterling inquired calmly, taking a step forward. Report what? That you just announced, in the presence of 2 witnesses, your complete certainty of the imminent death of the condo's owner, whom you are attempting to illegally dispossess. That you, he looked at Cynthia, as his wife, did not prevent this, but actively assisted it? You won't prove anything. Darius's eyes darted around the room. Those are just words. He's an old, sick man. He pointed at me. He's delusional. Words are not enough, came Naomi's quiet but firm voice. She stepped out of the hallway and into the bedroom. She stood between me and them, and she raised her hand. Clenched in her fist was that same vial, white with the blue label, the poisoned one. And this, she said, looking not at Darius but straight into her mother's eyes, will be enough for the toxicology report. This was the final act. If the recorder was a punch, the vial in Naomi's hand was the final controlling shot. Cynthia looked at the vial, at me, at Naomi. Her whole life, all her carefully constructed care, all her lies, it all collapsed in 1 second. She was no longer the devoted wife. She was the caught poisoner. She covered her face with her hands and simply slid down the doorframe to the floor. She wasn't crying. She was howling, a dreadful, wounded animal sound. What have you done? Darius choked, looking at Naomi. Naomi looked at him with cold contempt. I saved my father's life, and you? She nodded toward her mother. You were killing him along with her. That's not true, Darius screamed. It was all him. He went crazy. He set this up. Those are his vitamins. Naomi, think. This is our chance. We would have... Shut up, Darius, Mr. Holloway commanded. Just shut up. Every word you say now works against you and against her. He nodded toward the sobbing Cynthia. From a legal standpoint, Mr. Sterling continued dryly, we have, first, an audio recording confirming the conspiracy of a group of individuals to seize property. Second, he nodded at the vial in Naomi's hand, physical evidence that, as I understand it, will be submitted for technological examination. The contents of this bottle, plus George Dixon's testimony about the substitution, plus the diagnosis of a mild heart attack. All of this combines into a very ugly charge. Attempted murder committed by a group of people in conspiracy. Those are very, very serious jail sentences. Darius deflated. All his cynicism, all his arrogance, it vanished. He stood there, pale and limp. He knew this was the end. We didn't mean to, he pleaded. Mom, tell them. But Cynthia could say nothing. She sat on the floor of the foyer, rocking back and forth. Mr. Holloway looked at me. Mr. Dixon, we can call the police right now. An officer will be here in 10 minutes. They will take both him and her. I looked at Cynthia, the woman I had lived with for 30 years, the woman I had once loved, the mother of my child. She sat on the dirty rug in the foyer, pathetic and crushed. "No," I said. "No police." Naomi looked at me in surprise. Darius looked up with a glimmer of hope. "Dad?" Naomi asked. "No need," I repeated. "We will resolve this ourselves," Naomi finished for me. She understood. She looked at her mother, long and hard. "Get up," she told Cynthia. "Get up and leave." Cynthia looked up at her, her face tear-stained. "Naomi, honey, Leave," Naomi repeated in an icy voice. "Right now. Take him," she nodded at Darius, "and leave this apartment forever." "But where will I go?" Cynthia whispered. "I don't care," Naomi cut her off. "To him, anywhere. But you don't live here anymore. We'll send your things later. Get out." Darius was the first to regain his senses. He realized they were being given freedom. They were being given a chance not to go to jail. "Mom, get up." He roughly yanked Cynthia by the arm. "Get up. Let's go." He practically dragged her toward the exit. Cynthia stumbled, not looking back, shuffling toward the door. Darius threw the door open. On the threshold, Cynthia stopped for a second. She turned around. She looked at me. I will never forget that look. There was no remorse in it. There was hatred. Hatred for the man who had survived, for the man who had caught her. Then she looked at Naomi. "You," she hissed. "You are not my daughter. You are not my mother," Naomi replied softly. Darius shoved her out onto the landing. The sound of the door slamming shut hung in the air. It seemed deafening in the sudden silence. Mr. Holloway and Mr. Sterling, my saviors, coughed delicately. "Mr. Dixon," Mr. Holloway said, putting the recorder back in his pocket. "Are you sure about your decision not to call the police?" I slowly got out of bed. My legs were a little shaky, but no longer from weakness, but from the immense tension I had just endured. I looked at Naomi. She stood in the middle of the room, still clenching that terrible vial in her hand. She was pale as a sheet, but her eyes were dry. "Yes," I said. "I'm sure. I couldn't explain it. To put the mother of my child, the woman I lived with for 30 years, even that woman, in jail. No, I couldn't." "We understand," Mr. Sterling nodded. "It's your right. A family matter." What a terrifying phrase. A family matter. "But yeah," Mr. Holloway added, "I strongly recommend that you file for divorce and property division immediately, before they take any new steps. Cynthia is still your legal wife, and Darius is still listed as living here." "Yes," I said, quietly. "All the more reason you need protection. David and I are ready to help, free of charge. Of course. Consider it an old friendship." I finally took a closer look at his face. Marcus T. Holloway, the son of Thomas Holloway, my former colleague from the department, whom I had helped with his graduate thesis years ago. God, what a small world. "I didn't know it was you," I mumbled. "Naomi found us through some of her university connections." He smiled gently. "You have a brilliant daughter. She handled everything perfectly." He handed me a business card. "Call any time. And now," he checked his watch, "we need to leave. I think our mission is complete. Naomi," he nodded to her, "hang in there." They left quietly, professionally. Naomi and I were left alone. We stood in the middle of the living room, the one where Darius had so enthusiastically talked about the oak floors and the gorgeous loft. Sheets of paper from his folder lay scattered on the floor. Some floor plans, financial statements, trash. The silence in the apartment, which had recently been filled with lies, was now ringing. It pressed down on my ears. It was the silence of truth, a terrible, burnt-out truth. I looked at Naomi. She slowly unclenched her fist. The vial of poison lay in her palm. She walked silently into the kitchen. I followed her. She opened the garbage can, but then stopped. "No," she said. "Not like this." She took a plastic bag, carefully placed the vial into it, then went to the foyer, picked up the digital recorder Mr. Holloway had left her, and put that in the bag, too. "We'll keep this for now," she said, "just in case, so they know we have it." She was right. It was our insurance. And then she sat down on a stool in the kitchen and started to cry. Not hysterically, not loudly, silently. Large, heavy tears just rolled down her cheeks. She didn't cover her face, didn't make a sound. She just stared at the wall and wept. I walked over and put my arms around her shoulders. I had lost my wife. I had lost my faith in the family I knew. I had lost 30 years of my life, which, it turned out, were built on calculation. I was an old, sick, deceived man. But I looked at my 20-year-old daughter, pale, exhausted, but with such a firm, unyielding core inside her. The girl who had just saved my life, not with force, but with her mind. And I realized that I hadn't lost everything. I realized I was the richest man in the world. Several months passed, 3 or 4. Time flowed differently after that blow, sluggishly. We were sitting in our small kitchen, the same one. The condo felt different now, quiet. We had rearranged the furniture, gotten rid of the ghosts. Cynthia and Darius had disappeared. Mr. Holloway arranged everything. The divorce, Darius's eviction, by court order. They got some compensation. Cynthia received the share the court allocated to her, and they left. I didn't know where, and frankly, I didn't want to know. Naomi took a semester off from college. "Pops," she told me back then, "I can't study right now. I want to be home with you. Otherwise, you'll start forgetting to take your pills again." Only, there were no pills anymore. On the clean, scrubbed kitchen table, there were no vials or bottles, just an old teapot, 2 mugs, and a chessboard. It took me a long time to recover from everything. My heart still acted up, but not from sickness, from life. Naomi pulled me through. She forced me to take walks, forced me to take out the chess set again. I picked up the white queen and moved her 1 square. "You know, honey," I said softly, looking at the board, "I've been thinking. My whole life, I was afraid of a heart attack, afraid of high blood pressure. But it turns out the most terrifying sleeping pill is blind trust. It puts vigilance to sleep, puts reason to sleep, puts the soul to sleep, better than any chemical." Naomi looked up at me. She stared at me for a long time, intently, and then, for the first time in those long, frightening months, she truly smiled. "Well, Pops," she said, "it's a good thing we ran out of pills." She picked up her black rook. "Your move. I've told you everything as it happened. I've lived a long life and learned one simple thing. The most valuable things we have are not apartments or money. It's the people who are ready to sit down at the chessboard with you when the whole world has fallen apart. Please cherish your loved ones. Take 5 minutes today and just tell them you love them. And what do you think? Should Naomi and I have let them go that evening? Or should we have called the police and punished them to the fullest extent of the law? Write back and tell me what you would have done in our place. You know, I've thought a lot about everything that happened. I used to think love meant trusting someone completely. But now I ain't know. Real love means staying awake, keeping your eyes open, without letting your heart turn cold. You can lose money, comfort, even friends. But if someone still sits across from you, at the chessboard, you've got everything that really matters. Life can hit hard sometimes, but maybe it just wants to show us who truly stands beside us. And that's not the end. That's a new beginning. If you feel the same way and enjoyed my story, hit the like button so we can see how many of us there are. I'd love to know what city and what time you're listening. Tell me in the comments. And if you want to support my journey, you can send a small donation. Thank you for listening and spending your time with me. For more life stories like this one, check out the other videos on my channel and subscribe. On the screen, you'll see 2 new stories I'm sure you'll love. Click one and start listening. Love to you all.